Welcome, kindred spirits, to a place of positivity, passion, and purpose. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of domestic terrorism. We hope you find it enlightening. From the upright aftermath of the Oklahoma City bombing, the deadliest domestic terrorist attack in United States history. Domestic terrorism or homegrown terrorism is a form of terrorism in which victims within a country are targeted by a perpetrator with the same citizenship as the victims. There are many definitions of terrorism, and none of them are universally accepted. With our curiosity piqued, let's embark on a dedicated exploration of definition and its fascinating intricacies. While there are many potential definitions of domestic terrorism, it is largely defined as terrorism in which the perpetrator targets his own country. Enders defines domestic terrorism as homegrown in which the venue, target, and perpetrators are all from the same country. The term homegrown terrorism stems from jihadi terrorism against Westerners. Wooler and Doboles described homegrown terrorism as autonomously organized radicalized Westerners with little direct assistance from transnational networks, usually organized within the home or host country, and targets fellow nationals. The Congressional Research Service report, American Jihadist Terrorism, Combating a Complex Threat, describes homegrown terrorism as a terrorist activity or plots perpetuated within the United States or abroad by American citizens, permanent legal residents, or visitors radicalized largely within the United States. The United States Department of State defined terrorism in 2003 as premeditated, politically motivated violence perpetrated against non-combatant targets by subnational groups or clandestine agents, usually intended to influence an audience. However, the U.S. government cannot charge someone with domestic terrorism because no such criminal law exists. Under the 2001 United States of America Patriot Act, domestic terrorism is defined as activities that involve acts dangerous to human life that are a violation of the criminal laws of the U.S. or of any state. They appear to be intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, to influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion, or to affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping, and occur primarily within the territorial jurisdiction of the U.S. This definition is made for the purposes of authorizing law enforcement investigations. While international terrorism, acts of terrorism transcending national boundaries, is a defined crime in federal law, no federal criminal offense exists which is referred to as domestic terrorism. Acts of domestic terrorism are federally charged under specific laws, such as killing federal agents or attempting to use explosives to destroy a building in interstate commerce. Some state and local governments in the United States do have domestic crimes called terrorism, including the District of Columbia. In 2020, in response to Public Law 100 and 1692, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2020, the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice published the following definition of domestic terrorism. Domestic terrorism for the FBI's purposes is referenced in U.S. Code at 18 U.S.C. and is defined as activities involving acts dangerous to human life that are a violation of the criminal laws of the United States or of any state, appearing to be intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence the policy of government by intimidation or coercion, or affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping, and occurring primarily within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States. The 2020 publication notes the U.S. government broadly divides the domestic terrorism (DT) or domestic violent extremism (DVE) threat into several threat categories, with the two largest being racially or ethnically motivated violent extremism. This threat encompasses the potentially unlawful use or threat of force or violence in furtherance of ideological agendas derived from bias, often related to race or ethnicity, held by the actor against others or a given population group. Racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists purport to use both political and religious justifications to support their racially or ethnically based ideological objectives and criminal activities. Anti-government or anti-authority violent extremism. This threat encompasses the potentially unlawful use or threat of force or violence in furtherance of ideological agendas derived from anti-government or anti-authority sentiment, including opposition to perceived economic, social, or racial hierarchies, or perceived government overreach, negligence, or illegitimacy. Without wasting any more time, let's jump into the fascinating world of facts and studies. Homegrown terrorism is not new to the world. Security analysts have argued that after the end of the Cold War, military conflicts have increasingly involved violent non-state actors carrying out asymmetric warfare, of which terror attacks are one part. The United States has uncovered a number of alleged terrorist plots that have been successfully suppressed through domestic intelligence and law enforcement. The United States has begun to account for the threat of homegrown terrorism, as shown by increased volume of literature on the subject in recent years and increased number of terrorist websites since Abu Musab al-Zarqi, the leader of al-Qaeda in Iraq, began posting beheading videos in 2003. A July 2009 document by the FBI estimated that there were roughly 15,000 websites and web forums that support terrorist activities, with around 10,000 of them actively maintained. 80% of these sites are on US-based servers. According to the Congressional Research Service's study, American Jihadist Terrorism, Combating a Complex Threat, between May 2009 and November 2010, law enforcement made arrests related to 22 homegrown jihadist-inspired terror plots by American citizens or legal residents of the U.S. This is a significant increase over the 21 plots caught in the 7 interim years after the September 11 attacks. During these 7 years, 2 plots resulted in attacks, compared to the 2 attacks between May 2009 and November 2010, which resulted in 14 deaths. This spike post-May 2009 shows that some Americans are susceptible to ideologies that support a violent form of jihad. Roughly 1/4 of these plots have been linked to major international terrorist groups, but an increasing number of Americans are holding high-level operational roles in these terrorist groups, especially Al-Qaeda and its affiliated groups. The former CIA director Michael Hayden called homegrown terrorism the more serious threat faced by American citizens today. The UK, likewise, considers homegrown terrorism to be a considerable threat. On June 6, 2011, Prime Minister David Cameron announced a wide-ranging strategy to prevent British citizens from being radicalised into becoming terrorists while at university. The strategy is intended to prevent extremist speakers or groups from coming to universities. On July 23, 2019, Christopher A. Wray, the head of the FBI, said at a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that the agency had made around 100 domestic terrorism arrests since October 1, 2018, and that the majority of them were connected in some way with white supremacy. Wray said that the Bureau was aggressively pursuing using both counterterrorism resources and criminal investigative resources and partnering closely with our state and local partners, but said that it was focused on the violence itself and not on its ideological basis. A similar number of arrests had been made for instances of international terrorism. In the past, Wray has said that white supremacy was a significant and pervasive threat to the US. As we transition, let's shed light on lone wolf terrorism and its relevance to our ongoing exploration. Domestic terrorism is often linked to lone wolf terrorism. Sociologist Ramon Spade defines lone wolf terrorism as an act of terrorism committed by one person who acts on his or her own without orders from or even connections to an organization. From the late 20th to the early 21st centuries, lone wolf terrorism in the United States has primarily been associated with white supremacy, Islamic fundamentalism, and anti-government extremists such as Dylann Roof, Robert Bowers, Wade Michael Page, Ted Kaczynski, Eric Rudolph, Frazier Glenn Miller Jr., and Omar Mateen. Many lone wolves share a common trait in that they seek acceptance from other groups but are typically met with rejection. In their 2007 book Hunting the American Terrorist, former FBI Deputy Assistant Director Terry Turchi and former FBI Special Agent Kathleen Puckett described 6 criteria to define a lone wolf. 1. The act of terrorism was organized by few or only one person that was not operating with an organized group. 2. The individual is willing to use lethal violence to achieve their goal. 3. Their primary goal is ideological, political, or religious in scope. 4. The individual is willing to accept full-scale collateral damage. 5. The individual is not intending to commit suicide unless the situation calls for it. 6. The individual is intending to commit homicide to get their message public or to use such acts as the message. Moving on to the next segment, we have radicalization. There is no one path toward violence. Homegrown terrorists have been high school dropouts, college graduates, members of the military, and cover the range of financial situations. Research published in the British Journal of Politics and International Relations in 2011 suggested that domestic terrorism in countries with majoritarian political systems may result from a lack of opportunities for meaningful political engagement. Some domestic terrorists studied overseas and were exposed to radical Islamist thought, while others took their inspiration from the internet. An article published in the British Journal of Sociology suggests that discrimination against minorities, particularly in the form of residential segregation of Muslims in European countries such as England, France, and Germany, can contribute to radicalization of Muslims living in these countries. Mark Sidgman writes in his book Leaderless Jihad, Terror Networks in the 21st Century that, contrary to popular belief, radicalization into terrorism is not the product of poverty, various forms of brainwashing, youth, ignorance, lack of education, lack of employment, lack of social responsibility, criminality, or mental illness. He says that intermediaries and English-speaking imams, such as the late Yemeni-American Tariq Omar al-Awlaki 2011, who are often found through the internet on forums, provide key roles in the radicalization process. Social networks provided in forums support and build upon an individual's radical beliefs. Prison systems are also a concern as a place of radicalization and jihadist recruiting. Nearly 36 ex-convicts who attended training camps in Yemen were believed to have been radicalized in prison. The only constant appears to be a newfound hatred for their native or adopted country, a degree of dangerous malleability, and a religious fervor justifying or legitimizing violence that impels these very impressionable and perhaps easily influenced individuals toward potentially lethal acts of violence, according to Peter Bergen and Bruce Hoffman's September 2010 paper for the Bipartisan Policy Center. In this segment, we'll be unraveling the complexities of training and exploring its multifaceted nature. Training for potential homegrown terrorists is often very fast-paced, or rushed, as some groups under attack by U.S. forces may feel the need to implement operations more precipitously than they might otherwise occur, according to Bruce Hoffman. This was the case with the failed Times Square plot carried out by Faisal Shahzad. Pakistani Taliban TPP was on record as providing financing and 4 months of training for Shahzad directly prior to his actions in Times Square. Shahzad reportedly received only 3 to 5 days of training in bomb making. Some individuals go abroad to a region containing extremism, predominantly Pakistan, but also Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen or Somalia. In the case of the London Underground bombers, Mohammed Siddiq Khan, the operational leader of the cell, received military and explosives training at a camp in Molokand, Pakistan in July 2003. Later he took Shahzad Tanweer to Karachi, Pakistan, in late 2004 to February 2005, where they crossed the border to receive training at Al-Qaeda camps in Afghanistan. Training and usage of recruits is varied. Some, such as Shahzad, received little training and ultimately failed in their goals. Others, like the sleeper agent David Headley's reconnaissance efforts, were essential towards Lashkar-e-Toiba's late success in the November 2008 Mumbai attacks. Scholars say that some lone wolves may achieve objectives, but the vast majority of individual operators fail to execute their plans because of lack of training and planning. There is also a question as to whether such individuals are radical or suffering other problems. The American convert, Abul Hakim Muhammad and Carlos Bledsoe, who killed a U.S. military recruiter in Little Rock, Arkansas, and wounded another, had many other targets and plans, which went awry. It was not until some time after his arrest that he first claimed to have been working for Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula at QAP. But investigators found no evidence of this. The lead county prosecutor said that, aside from Muhammad's self-serving statements, it was just an awful killing, like others he had seen. Bledsoe's father described his son as unable to process reality. He was charged with capital murder and related charges, not terrorism, and pleaded guilty. The American Nidal Hasan, the U.S. Army major and psychiatrist charged in the 2009 Fort Hood shooting, had come to the attention of colleagues and superiors years before the shootings. They documented their concerns about his mental state. The Department of Defense has classified the event as workplace violence rather than terrorism, pending Hassan's court-martial. Some observers believe that his personal characteristics are more like those of other mass murderers than terrorists. He did not belong to any group. The Somalian Al-Shabaab, the youth have recruited strongly in Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota. The Somali Americans received training by senior Al-Qaeda leaders in Somalia. Hoffman believed this indicates that radicalization and recruitment is not an isolated, lone wolf phenomenon unique to Somali Americans, but that there is terrorist recruitment infrastructure in the United States. After more than a dozen of 20 American recruits were killed in fighting in Somalia, the number of Americans going to join Al-Shabaab has declined since. Get ready for an exciting part as we dive into the role of the Internet. The Internet is a driver and enabler for the process of radicalization, says a report of the Police Department of the City of New York of 2007. The Internet has a wide appeal as it provides an anonymous way for like-minded, conflicted individuals to meet, form virtual relations, and discuss the radical and extremist ideology they encounter. The virtual network created in message boards or private forums further radicalize and cements the jihadi Salafi racial supremacist message individuals have encountered as they build a community. The Internet acts as an enabler, providing the aspiring jihadist supremacist with a forum in which they may plan, share information on targets, weapons, and recruit others into their plans. Much of the resources needed to make weapons can be found online. With the groundwork laid, let's now examine Inspire and its connections to our previous discussions. Inspire is an online English-language propaganda magazine published by Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula (QAP). Purported to be created by Samir Khan, a U.S. citizen and cyber jihadist, the magazine uses American idioms and phrasing and does not appear to have British or South Asian influences in its language. The magazine contains messages calling for Western jihadists, like this one from a QAP leader Nosha al-Wahashi, to acquire weapons and learn methods of war. They are living in a place where they can cause great harm to the enemy and where they can support the messenger of Allah. The means of harming them are many, so seek assistance from Allah and do not be weak, and you will find a way. STRTFOR suggests that the magazine is meant to fan the flames of jihad. Without wasting any more time, let's jump into the fascinating world of Africa. January 2012, Nigeria attacks. Around 37 Christians are targeted and killed by Boko Haram militants. April 16, 2013, Baga massacre. 187 people are killed in Baga in Borno State. It is unclear whether the Nigerian military or Boko Haram is responsible for the massacre. June 18, 2009, Al-Shabaab claimed the 2009 Beledweyne bombing, which killed 35 people including Somali Security Minister Omar Hashi Aden. With that being said, let's now move on to Australia. Operation Pendennis, Melbourne and Sydney, Australia, November 2005. Sydney hostage crisis. December 2014. Now, let's shift our focus to Canada and embark on an intellectual exploration of its various dimensions. On October 14, 1982, the anarchist group the Squamish Five, who were Canadian version of Direct Action, bombs a Lytton Industries factory north of Toronto that is manufacturing guidance devices for American cruise missiles. 10 were injured. On May 8, 1984, soldier Dennis Lortie, a Federalist, entered the National Assembly with the intent of killing Rin Lovesque and the deputies of the party Quebecois. Due to a great amount of chance, he came in too early and killed 0 deputies, but still killed 3 other people and wounded 13. An armed employee in Jalbert negotiated with Lortie for several hours and convinced him to give up his gun and get arrested. Jalbert was decorated the next week. On October 20, 2014, in the 2014 Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu ramming attack, the radicalized Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu, Quebec, Canadian citizen Martin Couture-Rouleau, who also called himself Abu Ibrahim al-Kennedy, ran a soldier down and shot another. Couture-Rouleau was, in the aftermath, shot dead by an officer of the Suite du Quebec. On October 22, 2014, Michael Zehef-Bibeau opened fire at the National War Memorial in Parliament Hill, Ontario. 1 soldier was shot. The suspect ran to the Parliament of Canada and engaged in a shootout with security and police forces. On January 29, 2017, in the Quebec City mosque shooting, Alexandre Bissonnette, a political science student at the University of Laval, opened fire in the Islamic Cultural Centre of Quebec City in Quebec City, Quebec, killing 6 worshippers. Get ready for a captivating exploration as we unravel the layers of China and their profound significance. 2014 Coming Attack. Prepare yourself for an eye-opening discussion on France in the upcoming portion of this video. Maxime Brunery's failed assassination attempt of Jacques Chirac, January 2015. Ile-de-France attacks in Ile-de-France, November 2015. Paris attacks in Paris, July 3, 2017. And November 6, 2018, assassination plots against Emmanuel Macron by far-righters. Nulmerzoak riots, summer 2023. As we move forward, let's uncover the untold stories and fascinating intricacies of Germany. From the Pretoric Meinhof of the Red Army faction from 1970 to 1998, revolutionary cells from 1973 to 1993, National Socialist Underground from 2000 to 2006, the murder of Walter Lobk. Turning our focus to Israel, let's explore its key elements. Brit Hakenaim, ultra-Orthodox radical Jewish organization which operated in the Uz and worked against the secularization in the newly born Israel. Some Israeli Arabs were involved in terrorist activities numerous times according to the Shin Bet. Most of them had connections to Palestinian terrorist organizations, with a minority of them operating by their own. Some notable examples are the bombing of No. 361 Igbus in Muran, where Israeli Arabs from Bizina were involved, and the 2017 Temple Mount shooting. Get ready to immerse yourself in the world of Italy as we examine its impact and relevance. Years of lead by far-right neo-Nazi, neo-fascist and far-left communist Marxist groups. Macerata shooting by neo-Nazi leader Nord member Luca Traini. In the next segment, we'll be exploring New Zealand and its implications for our subject matter. Wanganui Computer Centre bombing, November 1982. Anarchist Neil Roberts detonated a homemade bomb in a suicide attack on the New Zealand Police Computer Centre. Only Roberts was killed in the attack, and while the building entrance doorway was destroyed, the computer system was not damaged. Get ready for a captivating exploration as we unravel the layers of Norway and their profound significance. Norway attacks, July 2011. A right-wing extremist who spoke against Islam and immigration, and as Behring Breivik was responsible for a car bomb explosion that killed 8 in Oslo and killing 69 at a summer camp on the island of Utøya. Prepare yourself for an in-depth analysis of Netherlands in this section. Theo van Gogh murder by the Hofstede Group, Amsterdam, November 2004. In this part of the video, We'll be delving deeper into Spain and analyzing its key components. ETA terrorism. 2004 Madrid train bombings. In this chapter, we'll be shedding light on United Kingdom and its role in shaping our understanding. London Underground bombing July 2005 in London, United Kingdom. Murder of Joe Cox in Birstall, West Yorkshire, United Kingdom by Thomas Mayer. 2017 Finsbury Park mosque attack in Finsbury Park, London, United Kingdom by Darren Osborne. The neo-Nazi national action. Without wasting any more time, let's jump into the fascinating world of United States. A non-exhaustive list of examples of U.S. attacks that have been referred to as domestic terrorism. San Francisco Coal Miners Massacre. The Hounds, a white vigilante group in San Francisco, attacks a Chilean mining community, raping women, burning houses, and lynching 2 men. 1856 Potawatomi Massacre. Abolitionist John Brown with like-minded settlers killed 5 pro-slavery settlers north of Potawatomi Creek in Franklin County, Kansas. 1857 Mountain Meadows Massacre. Series of attacks on the Baker Fancher emigrant wagon train at Mountain Meadows in southern Utah. 1863 Lawrence Massacre by Quantrill's Raiders, a Confederate guerrilla group led by William Quantrill, on the Unionist town of Lawrence, Kansas, killing around 190 civilians. 1864 Street Albans raid in Vermont by Confederate agents based in the province of Canada. They robbed $208,000 from 3 banks, held hostages, killed a local, and attempted to burn the entire town. 1865 Lincoln assassination. 1873 Colfax Massacre. Republicans had narrowly won the 1872 election to retain control of the state, but Democrats contested the results. Thousands of African Americans were killed by domestic terrorists. White supremacist organizations such as the Knights of White Camellia and the Ku Klux Klan. 1886 Haymarket Affair. 2 workers were killed by police in the course of a confrontation between striking workers and strikebreakers in the streets of Chicago. 1917 Milwaukee Police Department bombing. Bomb attack that killed 10 people including 9 members of local law enforcement. 1920 Wall Street bombing. Horse-drawn wagon filled with 100 pounds 45 of dynamite was detonated and killed 38 and injured 400 across the street from the headquarters of the J.P. Morgan Bank in the financial district of New York City. 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. White mob started the Tulsa Race Massacre, attacking residents and businesses of the African American community known as Black Wall Street in the Greenwood area in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in what is considered one of the worst incidents of racial violence in United States history. 1963 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. Members of the United Klans of America set a bomb consisting of a timing device and 15 sticks of dynamite to explode at a historically black church in Birmingham, Alabama, that was a local focus of the civil rights struggle. Attacks by the Weather Underground, SLA activities, and the 1974 shootout by Donald DeFreeze. 1979 members of the KKK and the American Nazi Party shot 5 members of the Communist Workers' Party at the Greensboro Massacre. Attacks by the Jewish Defense League. 1981 Muiz, a National Guard base attack by the Borica Popular Army. The Order Bruder Schweigen activities such as the assassination of Jewish radio host Alan Berg in Denver, Colorado. Aryan Republican Army criminal activities. 1995 Oklahoma City bombing at Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, by Timothy McVeigh. 1996 Centennial Olympic Park bombing at Centennial Olympic Park, Atlanta, Georgia, by Eric Robert Rudolph. 1999 Los Angeles Jewish Community Center shooting at Granada Hills North Valley Jewish Community Center and Chatsworth in Los Angeles, by Buford O'Farrell. 1999 The murders of Gary Motson and Winfield Moda and burnings of Sacramento synagogues and abortion clinics in Happy Valley, California, and Sacramento, California, by Matthew and Tyler Williams. 2002 Beltway sniper attacks in and around Washington, D.C., area by John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo. 2008 Barack Obama assassination plot in Tennessee by neo-Nazi skinheads. 2008 Knoxville Unitarian Universalist Church shooting at the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church in Knoxville, Tennessee, by Jim David Atkinson. 2009 United States Holocaust Memorial Museum shooting at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C., by James Von Brunn. 2009 Fort Hood shooting at Fort Hood in Tulane, Texas, by Nidal Hassan. 2010 Austin suicide attack targeting the IRS at Building I Echelon Office Complex in Austin, Texas, by Andrew Joseph Stack. Priter Thumber itemage to Building Alpha. 2010 Austin suicide attack. 2012 Wisconsin Sikh temple shooting Wade Michael Page fatally shot 6 people including himself and wounded 4 others in a mass shooting at a Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. 2013 Boston Marathon bombing at Boylston Street and Boston Marathon in Boston by Chayat Sarnav and Tamerlant Sarnav. 2014 Overland Park Jewish Community Center shooting at the Jewish Community Center of Greater Kansas City and Village Shalom by Fraser Glenn Miller Jr. 2015 Curtis Culwell Center attack terrorist attack on an exhibit featuring cartoon images of Muhammad at the Curtis Culwell Center in Garland, Texas. 2015 Charleston Church shooting at Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina, by Dylan Roof. 2015 Lafayette shooting at Grand 16 Movie Theater in Lafayette, Louisiana, by John Rusty Russell Hauser. 2015 Colorado Springs Planned Parenthood shooting at a Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado Springs, Colorado, by Robert Louis Dare. 2015 San Bernardino attack at the Inland Regional Center in San Bernardino, California, by Rizwan Farouk and Tashfeen Malik. 2015 Chattanooga shootings at the Armed Forces Career Center and U.S. Navy Reserve Center in Chattanooga, Tennessee, by Muhammad Yusuf Abdulaziz. 2016 Orlando nightclub shooting at Pulse LGBT nightclub in Orlando, Florida, by Omar Mateen. 2017 stabbing of Timothy Coleman at Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan by James Harris Jackson. 2017 stabbing of Richard Collins at the University of Maryland in College Park, Maryland, by Sean Abansky. 2017 congressional baseball shooting at the Congressional Baseball Game for Charity in Alexandria, Virginia, by James Thomas Hutchinson. 2017 Fresno shootings at Motel 6 and downtown Fresno in Fresno, California, by Corey Ali Muhammad. 2017 Charlottesville car attack during the Charlottesville Riot at the Right Rally at Downtown Mall in Charlottesville, Virginia, by James Alex Fields. 2017 Burnett Chapel shooting at the Burnett Chapel Church of Christ in Antioch, Tennessee, by Emmanuel Kaida Samson. 2018 October 2018 United States mail bombing attempts across various cities in the United States by Cesar Altuisek Jr. 2018 murder of Blaze Bernstein at Borrego Park in Lake Forest, California, by Samuel Woodard at Waffen Division. 2018 Pittsburgh synagogue shooting at Tree of Life Alzheimer congregation by Robert Bowers. 2019 Christopher Paul Hassan's assassination plot of Democratic, left-wing, and socialist politicians and journalists. 2019 Escondido Mosque fire and Poway synagogue shooting at Dar al-Arqam Mosque and Chabad of Poway in Escondido, California, and Poway, California, by John T. Ennis. 2019 Tacoma attack at an ICE detention center in Tacoma, Washington, by Willem Van Sprinsen. 2019 El Paso shooting at a Walmart store in El Paso, Texas, by Patrick Crucius. 2020 Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot planned by far-right militia group Wolverine Watchmen. 2020 killings of Aaron Danielson and Michael Reinl by Michael Reinl. 2020 Nashville bombing by conspiracist Anthony Warner detonating his RV in downtown Nashville on Christmas Day. 2021 U.S. Capitol attack by supporters of President Donald Trump. 2022 Colleyville synagogue hostage crisis in Texas. 2022 Buffalo shooting in New York. 2023 Jacksonville shooting in Florida. Share this video with your friends and spread the knowledge.